Charlie, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you.
Yeah.
I always like to kind of just give a background of how I meet the guests, and you just reached out to me on LinkedIn and connected with me. And I thought that you look like an interesting person. So we started talking back and forth and went out for coffee a couple weeks ago and was able to learn about you and what you do. And so I'm glad that you reached out, and I'm glad that we're able to get you on the podcast. So for those who don't know you, go ahead and just give a background of who you are and kind of where you're from and how you got into your current position. And then we'll move on from there.
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Charles. I go by Charlie usually.
Oh, sorry about that. I should have asked you beforehand.
It's all good. So I am a financial advisor. The market that I serve is Christians. I focus on faith-based finance. So the way I describe it to people is kind of like, we have the technical aspects of being a financial advisor, and then we have biblical principles. Mm-hmm. You kind of pair those two together, and then you get faith-based finance. And so what my goal is to help Christians align their finances with their values, their Christian values. As far as how I got into what I'm doing, I have a couple family members who are advisors, so I saw the path that they took. They're not necessarily in the faith-based space, but I saw the opportunity once I got into the business. I've been doing this for a handful of years now, and I started as kind of a generalist approach and transitioned into this. I'm a member at my company. I work for Ameriprise Financial. They have a Christian franchise advisor network. So I got plugged in with them, and then kind of have progressed into the faith-based space from there.
Cool. Okay. So let's jump into that a little bit then. So you said you had some family members who had done it, and I know it was your dad, right, who has been a financial advisor in the past?
Yeah, my dad, he's been in the business since 98.
Okay.
And then
That's right.
I have an uncle who also does the same.
Okay. So it's kind of the family trade then.
Yeah, somewhat. Yeah.
More or less.
Yeah, I think I got a lot more family in farming, but
oh, really?
this one sounded better to me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you get to dress up a little bit more.
Right.
That's nice. Interesting. So you got into it, and then you've been doing it for a little while, and then you made the transition. So can you just let us know, did they reach out to you, or was that kind of something that you went out and searched for, or how did that transition come about?
Yeah, so I wasn't actually searching for it. I came across some marketing material that our company was putting out, and they have a handful of different things that we can share with clients or with prospects. And I was noticing that these posts that I was drawn to and that I liked and I was sharing often, it was from a thing called CFAN. And I didn't know what that was, so I clicked on it and just checked it out and said, Christian Franchise Advisor Network. Mm-hmm. I thought, well, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So I contacted them and said, hey, what do I got to do to join? And they said, just let us know you want to, and
there you go.
We'll get you plugged in with the right people, and here we are. Yeah,
that's cool.
That's
so,
wonderful.
And I'm trying to think. I don't want to bore you by asking you all the same questions I did when we were out to coffee, because I feel like a lot of this is just a natural progression, and obviously nobody else has heard your answers. So, give us kind of a background. Obviously you probably serve just anybody who wants to come to you as a financial advisor. Did you notice that your clientele really shifted at that point? You're pretty much marketing yourself mostly to Christians, I would assume.
Yeah. So at this point, I have clients who aren't Christian. Obviously, I started in the general space, or maybe who are Christian but don't necessarily look for the faith-based stuff. But as far as how it's transitioned, I'm very overt with the marketing. I serve Christians. With that said, if someone were to come to me and say, I'm not necessarily Christian, however, your approach I like for whatever reason, we definitely don't turn anyone away, don't discriminate against anyone. So, but yeah, it's definitely focused towards Christians, and that's who it fits the best, I think.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So then give us a rundown of what would be the differences in potentially your approach if you're dealing with someone who wants to approach their finances in a Christian worldview or a Christian way, based on, the Bible or whatever it may be, versus people who are just looking for sound financial advice.
Yeah. So, there's a couple of different ways. And, first off, people think financial advisor, they think investments. So when we're looking at investments, we can look for biblically screened investments. We can look for, faith-based investing, whether it's funds or whatever it might be. That's one area. On top of that, we focus a lot on comprehensive financial planning. And so when people come in, typically it's, husband and wife, they have some kids. Sometimes it's, people who are single, they've been divorced. For whatever reason, their financial picture is somewhat complex. It's not usually, very young people. With that said, I have clients who, my youngest one right now, I think is probably 22.
Okay.
And so we can work, on a lower level, and work kind of, without this.
But most of the time, it's a lot of different things going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah, and so with this more complex planning, we talk less about, just choosing one investment that looks like it'll do well, and we focus more on, what are your goals? What do you want to accomplish? For example, when do you want to retire? Are there any major purchases coming up? Are you trying to buy a home? Are you trying to buy, we're in Florida, so people want to buy boats.
Yeah.
Send your kids to college, things like that. And so what I found in the difference in serving Christians and taking that approach versus serving just anyone, is that it's very helpful in this planning process when we're talking about goals to talk about motivation and talk about why we're pursuing goals. And a large thing that we focus on with the faith-based planning is stewardship. And that's the idea that, everything that we have is kind of given to us and it's not necessarily ours. And so what we should be doing, or what we can be doing, is trying to use these resources we've been given in the best way possible. And so we talk about contentment, being happy with where you're at. We'll try to improve, but no matter what, we're happy with where we are.
Yeah.
We talk about generosity, so that focuses more on, charitable giving, whether that's through a tithe or on top of your tithe, you want to do something else. But it's, I would say, the motivation in consistently talking about these things and keeping them front of mind and not letting them slip away and slip into kind of a greedy mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's kind of the answer that I was looking for, or what I thought would be the answer. And you feel free to chime in anytime if you want to.
No,
but,
yeah, absolutely.
I feel like that's probably the biggest difference, is just the way that you approach it. And like you said, your goals and motivation behind it.
Yeah.
Everybody obviously wants to set themselves up for retirement. Some people have more ambitious goals than others. But I feel like your goals and that stewardship principle is just so important. So I feel like it's really beneficial to be able to sit down with somebody. And what I had told you before is, I didn't realize that was even really a thing. A financial advisor who, I know a lot of financial advisors who are Christians, but not really that many Christian financial advisors.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's just really helpful to be able to sit down with somebody who really gets it.
Yeah.
And is able to sit down and say, and ask the right questions. Hey, what are your goals? What about this principle of stewardship, and how can we approach that? I feel like that's really, really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting that you say that, Christian financial advisor versus an advisor who's a Christian, because, people mention that a lot to me is, oh, my financial advisor goes to my church. It's, but is he a Christian financial advisor? Yeah, exactly. I've been a Christian for, basically my whole life, is, until I knew what I was doing, really. But like I said, when I had that more generalist approach, it was a completely different approach that I had. And so, I was that financial advisor who was a Christian, but wasn't talking about stewardship, wasn't talking about contentment, wasn't talking about, another thing that we focus on a lot is, when I deal with couples, one of the leading causes of divorce is financial issues. And so we talk about, not just your financial plan, but we talk about why that happens. What are the motivators and what are the expectations? Why did you guys differ? And, we talk about, all these different things that when I was just a financial advisor who was a Christian, I never got into.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And addressing those things is important, especially coming from the divorce aspect. A lot of people know what the problem is in their marriage, or they know what they're struggling with, and they have trouble addressing it or approaching it properly. And so for you to kind of put that out as a disclaimer is, I think, very healthy, because then you're like, hey, just so you know, here's what the Bible has to talk about, and here's why we'll take this approach with you guys, just so you're, fully informed. And then that way they know down the road that, well, this makes sense, and this is based off of the Bible, and this is why we're doing it this way. And it's not just like, well, that's just what my financial advisor said. It's like, well, here's why he's basing it this way.
Yeah, that's true. You have a foundation. You have biblical principles that you can abide by and refer to.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And I had a couple questions that I was thinking of while you were talking, but I try not to listen and be thinking of the next question. I try and wholly listen, but sometimes that means that I just completely lose it.
I catch myself doing that often. I'll just be enjoying
the conversation. Yeah. No, what I was going to say, I was just going to make a point that that's kind of like real estate, to be honest. I feel like just in terms of you're kind of involved in every area of their life. You know, when you're a financial advisor, I feel like that's one of those things that is, I don't want to say taboo, but people don't really talk about their finances that much. I feel like it's becoming less and less, not stigmatized, but there was kind of an era where nobody really talked about money or different things like that. But you're seeing behind closed doors, and you're sitting down with people and helping them establish their goals and do things like that. And seeing, being able to help them with financial things and marriage things and all these different stuff. I feel like a lot of times we end up being marriage counselors and personal therapists and all these different things too for things that go
Pretty
on.
much,
So it's crazy.
Because you're so involved in such a huge area of their life that it ends up trickling down into other areas.
Exactly. Yeah. I guess that's what I would say.
Yeah.
So I want to go back just a second. So you said, more like biblically screened investments, I think is what you said. And I know we have to be really careful. Are you allowed to like give financial advice or?
So I need to do, specific due diligence before I can provide advice. But what's your question? I can tell you.
Yeah. So when you say biblically screened investments, can you give us a rundown of what those may be versus things or investments that you may not recommend for somebody who wants to approach finances in a faith-based way?
Yeah. So, it kind of depends on you and what you're looking for. But the idea with a faith-based investment and something that's screened like that is they're looking for certain things that they don't want you to put your money towards. So, for example, they talk about, sometimes alcohol, sometimes tobacco.
Okay.
And I know that people's opinion on that probably differ. Pornography, if there's something like that your money is going towards, they're focusing on getting that out of your portfolio.
Gotcha. Okay.
So something that wouldn't necessarily align with your values. And, I should mention that there's a lot of different faith-based investments. So, those three things I just mentioned, those aren't necessarily like a complete list. And some of them will touch on that. Some of them won't.
Yeah.
Or screen them out, I should say, and some of them won't. But yeah, it would be a matter of, if someone was interested in that, coming in, talking about, their goals, and first finding, what type of investment they need, what return we're looking for, the risk we're looking for.
Understood. Okay.
And then, picking from these different faith-based options that we have and saying, look, this one screens out this, and this one screens out this, and this, how do you feel about this? Do you feel good that your money is going towards this, or is this something that you're not comfortable with?
Move away from.
Never even thought about that before. Sometimes I guess you just give your money to, or you go to a professional in the industry and ask for advice, and they'll say, hey, here's a portfolio. And I guess you don't even look too deeply into like, well, what do they support? Or, what does that even look like? That's interesting. I've never thought about that before. So what, in the transfer from just being a general financial advisor to a more faith-based one, what were you looking for out of that? Would you say, what drew you to that the most?
Yeah. So at first I didn't know anything really.
Yeah.
That's true of everybody. So
yeah, I remember my dad talking to me when we were talking about, building a business, and it's not an easy thing to do. He was talking about, placing your faith at the center of it and having that be the foundation that you build it off of. And that's important to us as Christians.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I was always trying to think, how do I do that? I was thinking, well, I can try to make money and then, tithe on that, and, hopefully I get some other
good things.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully I get some other clients and I help them make more money, and they can increase their tithe if that's something that they do. But that was kind of the extent, and it's a really passive approach to, it's kind
of like the bare minimum.
Yeah,
I feel like
it's not a strategy at all, really. And I was kind of hoping, but it does nothing. Or it doesn't necessarily do anything. If it happens, it's just coincidence.
Yeah.
And so when I got plugged in with that Christian Franchise Advisor Network, that's when I started asking, like, what does this mean? What's the practical application? How do I transition? I have this extra title, associated with my name, this Christian Franchise Advisor Network. But
what does that mean? What does it entail?
How do I do anything different for my clients?
Yeah.
And so I've learned quite a bit through them. I've learned quite a bit through, I'm a member of another organization called Kingdom Advisors. And I just got done actually with the Kingdom Advisor Conference with them. So I learned a ton through them. And then just other advisors, I've found, and this is super great, they're very open and very happy and willing to talk about what they do to help, other people out. I think once you get into this space, the financial industry sometimes is, really competitive, and it can be, people don't necessarily want to give their secrets. Yeah, exactly. Cutthroat. But, these people who are in this space, most of them, at least the ones I've encountered, they're really passionate about what they do. They think that they're making a difference. And so their idea is that the more people that they can have doing these good things, the better.
Yeah.
And so, they've been very generous with their knowledge and what they know. So,
yeah, that's something that, Mark told me my broker told me a couple weeks ago. We were out to lunch and he made the comment, a rising tide lifts all ships. That's what he said. And so he said, basically, when one person does really well, when one person raises the standards for an industry, or even just provides a lot for the people around them in their sphere, it does that. It's got a trickle down effect for everybody. I feel like it's easy, like you said, for people to be tight-fisted with however they got to where they are, or whatever it may be. But I think that comes down to having a scarcity mindset, and the bottom line is there's people who want to work with someone else as a realtor, and people who will work better with me, people who will work well with you, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And so there's business for everyone, and I feel like that's it's a really selfish way to approach business, just to keep things really to yourself.
Yeah.
So I feel like being part of a group that you're able to learn and bounce ideas off other people and approach it with that faith-based way, I feel like that's really, really valuable. I mean, that's just networking in general is valuable, and networking with the right people who approach it the same way is even more so. That's awesome. I love that. So having said that, then we kind of talked about what your role entails and your history a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about potentially like prospecting or how you attract new business.
Sure.
So what are you doing kind of right now? Do you have a full book of clients? Are you busy? I know you reached out to me on LinkedIn. How are you attracting business?
Yeah. So, I'm definitely taking new clients, still growing the practice. As far as growing the practice, I do a lot through LinkedIn. I post on there, daily. I have, I reach out to other Christians.
Sorry about that.
You're good. I reach out to other Christians on there. That's the market that I'm serving. So, whether that's, I connected with you because you went to PCC. Mm-hmm. There's a handful of ways that I reach out to people, but just trying to find new people, get in front of them that way. And, we typically just, go have coffee one morning, and we just talk. I tell them what I do. They tell me what they do. And then we look for, maybe I can refer business to them. Maybe they can refer it back to me. On top of that, outside of the outreach, I've been recently looking to host some seminars at churches or at Christian employers.
That is a really good idea. Okay,
Yeah.
talk more about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so there's actually one. We have to go through some steps for our compliance department at work in order to present anything. They have to make sure everything's everything's good. But recently they just got one approved. And it's a really good one. There's a guy named Ron Blue who's really highly regarded in the faith-based finance sector. He's one of the first ones, and he heads that Kingdom Advisor Conference. And anyway, it's a seminar based on his book. And so you go in and you talk about a lot of things that we already mentioned. We talk about how every spending decision is a faith-based decision. So, each dollar that you use for something can't be used for another. And, that doesn't mean that you don't do anything for yourself, but that means, you just consider, the opportunity cost when you're doing these things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the same thing with your time. If you're putting time into one thing, it automatically means that you're saying no to every other possible thing that you could be doing with that minute in time.
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
really interesting. I like that. Let's clip that for Instagram. I feel like that's something that is a good truth.
Yeah.
The opportunity cost of using your funds for one thing versus something else.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned time too, because resources. I'm a financial advisor. I talk about money all day, but it's not limited to money. Your time is a resource. Your money is a resource. Your talents, your focus, all these different things. So, yeah, having all of that in mind is super important.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like and the talents are something else that I feel like people. It's easy to pass that over. And just be like, oh yeah, I enjoy this or this or this. Those are given to you for a purpose, presumably.
Yeah.
So, I feel like there's just so many different things that you can, different ways that you can approach finances and like we were just talking about, that using your time or resources for the correct things. And I feel like it's so valuable to be working with someone like you, because you can present that and say, hey, what about time, or what about these different things? What about that opportunity cost, where that's something that I haven't really connected those dots in a faith-based way as far as money before. It's like we talking about, tithes and offerings and things, but every spending decision is a faith-based decision. That's what you just said pretty much. And that's interesting. I feel like it's good to have people who can kind of turn on that light bulb in a sense and point you in different directions.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what we were talking about earlier, kind of just discussing the motivation behind doing things. That's a lot of what faith-based finance is like how we just brought this up and you thought, hey, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. It kind of comes full circle.
Yeah. It gives you another way to work it in and,
That's cool. That's exciting. And I feel like there's a lot of value there. So having said that, then we're kind of, what's next for you then? I know you're going to be doing this for a little while and you're building up your business and things like that. What gets you excited? Where are you headed?
What gets me excited? That's a good question. Right now I'm heavily focused on growing the practice. I am a younger guy in the industry. So I would love one day to be able to, especially after talking to the guys that I've been talking to and ladies too, they've given me so much information. I would love to be able to hire on, younger advisors and do the same for them.
Yeah.
Kind of as a mentor. And that could happen whether I hire them on or I
just giving your time.
Yeah. There's plenty of guys who've helped me out who, there's an advisor from Ohio, there's a guy from Alabama, and these are just guys that I'm in contact with, and there's nothing I can do for them. They've just been in the space for a lot longer. They've been in the faith-based space for a lot longer as well, and they just have information and they're just giving
willing
it.
to share it. Yeah.
I would love to be able to do that. Financial advising, I'm sure real estate is similar. I think
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, 80% of advisors, I think the number is, fail out in their first 3 years.
Wow.
So yeah, attrition's super high, and so for new guys getting in, the stress is unmatched, and you're fighting for scraps to try to just make it. And so if I could help people like that, I think that'd be really good.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like that's kind of the natural arc of you get into something and if you work hard, you can be successful. And then I feel like the thing to do with that's also a gift. That's a blessing from God, and to be able to turn around and give other people the advice that maybe you were given, or the help, or lift them up to the next level. I feel like that's something that's your responsibility as well, Yeah,
most definitely, especially because, I didn't earn that advice. These guys who've been in the business for so long, I provide nothing to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that generosity that they've given to you.
Exactly.
That you want to pass on to other people. Wow.
Yeah. Now, how do you, I'm so sorry. There's a lot going on.
No worries.
So how do you approach, is there any kind of strategy that you have in reaching out to people for advice, or do you kind of just lay it on the line and just say, hey, here's who I am, here's my story, and would you be willing to give me some advice?
Yeah. So, the first guy that I talked to, he's an advisor up in Alabama. He is a member of the Christian Franchise Advisor Network at Ameriprise. Okay. That's such a long name. I'll call it CFAN.
CFAN from now on. By now you should know what it means. Everybody should.
So yeah, the president of CFAN said, hey, you should reach out to this guy. And so I just, I shot him an email, said, hey, new to the group, any advice or anything would be appreciated. If not, have a good day. And he's been great. He's talked to me on the phone plenty of times, gone back and forth in email. Another guy I met through that Kingdom Advisors conference. He actually has a staff member. Her name is Kelly, and she was on the conference, and it was so crazy actually. She so we were in each day there were time slots, and you had to select the course that you wanted to go to. So there's maybe 3-4 options in the slot, and her and I happened to be in the same one. And she mentioned something in the chat bar on the side. And, I thought, oh, that's interesting. So I messaged her and said, hey, can I send you an email about this? And she said, sure. And so we started talking, and she asked where I was from, and I said, Pensacola. And she goes, that's so crazy. My financial advisor that I work under is actually vacationing in Pensacola. And, he's actually from Ohio, and he's coming back tomorrow, but he said he'd love to meet you. So he's normally 1,000 miles away, but right now he's 5. You want to?
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And so that's one guy I've been talking a lot with lately. But yeah, it's just, some of them have kind of dropped in my lap, and some of them, I've done a little bit of outreach. I think that one was dropped in my lap too. I don't think.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of people. Some people are really, really guarded about their time, and they don't really. You can tell when you reach out that they're not really looking to help anybody new.
Sure.
But I feel like there have been so many people along the way for me as well who have been kind of that way. There was a guy that I met when I had first dropped out of college, or actually I met him while I was still in college at Men's Warehouse. And he was the kind of person who was just like, he'd call me up and be like, hey, have you met this person? I'm about to go out to dinner. You want to come along with? And it's like, man, it really, like you said, you feel like you don't bring anything to the table, but it helps tremendously as a younger and newer person to have those kind of people who will kind of take you underneath and work with you on stuff. It's just really, it helps a lot.
Yeah.
So I feel like you said, that goal to be able to turn around and do that same thing for somebody else down the road. I feel like that's a wise use of whatever success you've earned. So
yeah, most definitely. And I think it's interesting that you said that guy would give you a call, and I think one thing that's important too is answering that call and saying yes.
Yeah.
That's true too.
Even if you're uncomfortable,
yeah,
when you don't feel like you have anything to offer, you feel like maybe you look even a little bit stupid, but just showing up and just thinking, if I do, I do.
Yeah.
But that's been really important for me, is because I'm quite introverted, pretty shy.
Really.
But just forcing myself to network, so much good has come of it.
Yeah.
You just have to do it.
You do. We just went to Pensacola Young Professionals last week on Thursday, I think it was, which if you haven't been, you should start going.
Okay.
It's a good networking. I think they do once a month networking groups, and then they put on like classes and seminars and things like that. But yeah, we went last week, and it's easy to go with your group of 3 people and sit down, and it's like, oh man, there's open seats over there, but just picking yourself up and going to a table of people that you don't even know, that's next level.
Yeah.
It's not easy. But after you sit down, you start talking to people, they're like, yeah, we came to the network. We came to this thing to meet other people too.
Yeah.
And everybody was scared to get up and go talk to other people. So I feel like it's one of those things that it's just like anything that you should be doing. As soon as you're done with it, as soon as you're leaving the gym, man, that felt good. I'm glad that I did that, but it's hard to get there. So that's cool, man. So what are you doing in your free time? We live in a beautiful, beautiful place. What do you do whenever you have a spare second, you're not working with clients and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely live in a beautiful place. And I'm originally from North Dakota, and so I think I appreciate it more than most.
Yeah.
And so, here I try to be in the water as much as I can.
Yep.
So whether it's surfing or diving or sailing, whatever it is, I'm in the water if I can be.
I love that. That's awesome. So did you pick up had you ever surfed before you moved here?
I hadn't. No, I had snowboarded a little bit, but I lived in North Dakota. People always ask me, is there mountains there? I'm like, no, it's flat.
Is it really?
So it's like, you went to the little hill behind the high school, and you could snowboard on a little Walmart thing back there. So as far as board sports went, I had like no experience at all.
Yeah.
So that was brand new.
Used to it.
Yeah.
I feel like, it would be the same for us. I've never ridden a skateboard or surfboard or anything. We had talked about it. I told you, I was like, I feel like if I try and learn, it'll just be disastrous. But I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say that's why we're trying to start with longboards, and then we'll get into surfing.
We'll see.
I don't know. Got to take that step. You got to optimize the water, because now here we are. Same thing. We lived in Wisconsin for so many years.
Yeah.
And then not much south in Illinois. And we just want to enjoy the water in its fullest capacity. So I'm impressed that you're doing that.
Yeah, I feel
That's
like being
good.
down here, you have to be on the water all the time.
Oh, yeah.
We
that's
live
goals.
15 minutes away from the
Right.
beach, like not 15 right now. But
yeah, right now.
Perdito's pretty close.
That's true. Pretty,
That's
especially
actually-
to here.
That's where I'm going now,
20
actually.
minutes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's so far to get out there, so I just shoot over to Perdito.
Okay.
Smart.
Um,
I don't. Are you on the west side or are you up there in? Are you closer to
I'm
Cordova?
downtown.
Oh, downtown. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. I'd like to work downtown. Actually, I do work downtown a lot of days.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're probably all over the place.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, we are all over the place. But well, that's cool, man. I appreciate you jumping on. I feel like this has just been. I wanted to just kind of hear your story and hear kind of that background, because I feel like a lot of people were like me, just didn't even realize that that's a niche or a sector in financial advising. So
Yeah.
definitely wanted to get you on the show.
Yeah, definitely. But we want more people to hear about it.
Yeah,
100%. It's one of those things that you really want to kind of amplify and push forward.
Yeah, we want more people to know who you are.
Definitely glad
Yeah.
that you hopped on the podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Absolutely. So where should we send people? Where can people learn more about you? Where do you want us to send to LinkedIn or?
Yeah, so I have LinkedIn, Facebook, or you could contact me directly, phone or email.
Okay.
But if you search my name, which is kind of tricky, Charles, and the last name it's Kudrna, which is a weird one. The
I'll spell it. You better spell it.
Kudrna.
RNA.
And it's not going to look right, but it is.
Yeah.
That's
how our last name is. Everybody's like, no.
Yeah,
But
our last name is terrible.
If you search that up, you'll find Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever your preferred platform is. Just
Awesome.
drop me a line that way.
Cool. Sounds good, man. Well, we'll try and send people your way. And definitely, if we come across anybody who's looking for that kind of a faith-based approach, we'll definitely send them your way. So
Absolutely.
appreciate you jumping on, Charlie. And we'll go to the beach and surf with you at some point.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Got
Thanks,
to.
man. All right.